passionate about Cleveland sports.
He's going in, touchdown!
Browns, Indians, Cavs, the Big Ten, and more.
Cleveland is a city of champions once again!
Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and beyond.
Swing it and drive! To deep right!
Here are your hosts, Andy Billman and Jarid Plotson.
Hey, what's up? Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and beyond. We're going to jump right into this because Andy's got a plane to catch and I've got a bed to get back into. I think we're live on Facebook right now, but Facebook did something silly to me. Yep, there we are. We're rolling. Andy, what's going on, man?
Cleveland Browns.
Coming off an awful Cleveland Browns loss that it was awful because of the way it happened, but in a sense, it was also kind of expected across the NFL that, you know, this wasn't a game that the Browns were supposed to lose, but they really did it in a way where they screwed themselves throughout the game, and it all boils down to turnovers, but we're going to hit on everything as we go through this thing. Andy, what'd you think of that first half?
About how we're doing this morning here. Good morning, everybody. We are definitely not morning people, Jared and I.
Yeah, we're
definitely
doing a morning podcast right now. That we're normally recording this in the afternoons or in the evenings, and it is 6:30 in the morning right now, and we're going to struggle through it just like the Browns did on Sunday.
Or selecting the Buckeyes for a college playoff. But I'll tell you, here's what I thought. Now that we've had 24 hours to digest this, I think sometimes Monday you still feel the hangover. Yeah. They look like a team who have not been there, and they haven't been there.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned it to me when we were texting. I think it was partial things. I thought they were a little bit overwhelmed by the speed of Houston. I will also say I underestimated how good Houston was. Oof. And for that, I texted you after that second drive. I'm like, the Browns need to be careful they don't get blown out, because I thought that was in play at one point. That's how bad it was getting.
Yep. So
let's keep that in mind. So I think those are two things at first. The other things, okay, again, they haven't been there before. Okay, so you got a rookie quarterback. And let's start with Mayfield. Mayfield had a terrible first half. 3 interceptions, and something that doesn't get talked about. He had 2 balls knocked down too. Mm-hmm. And why I learned that is, I thought not only was he off, I think he was having. I don't think he was in any kind of groove or feeling it. Sometimes when you're off, and you're like, oh, he's just overthrowing, or, you know, he's just he seems to be off on wide receivers. What I was seeing early on is like, man, he is just not in sync. He's not. He's over. He's just. I mean, he was off, but it was striking off. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Making throws that he otherwise would not be making, Andy. He was trying to. It's not even like he was trying to fit it into windows. There were no windows open in those places where he was putting the ball. He thought he can get away with slinging it, and you can do that in college maybe sometimes. You can't do that in the NFL. These guys are spying you. They know where the ball's going to go. You have got to pay attention to where these guys are on the field.
Yeah, I think Romeo Crennel did a nice job of confusing him. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. He just did not look like he had any kind of – he was not aware of what was going on in the game, and that's very unusual for him. Yeah. We've seen that in the past with Kaiser and Kessler, and you can name off the quarterbacks. You definitely felt that with Whedon at times. That's the first game you could feel in the first half where Mayfield had a really hard time not just getting in sync, but he was having a hard time understanding what was going on around him with Houston. Because honestly, I heard people say this, but I don't agree. I don't think the pass rush was really that.
Well, no.
It really wasn't.
This was the third game, Andy, where he wasn't sacked.
I know. He had pressure. Don't get me wrong, compared to the other two, but I didn't really. It wasn't like vomiting. Like, it wasn't to the point where it's like, gosh, I'm afraid he's going to get hurt. So Baker really had one of those games where he looked like a rookie. And that's where we need to take a breath, and I need to take a breath, and all Browns fans need to take a breath in case you're still fired up. Mayfield's a rookie. He played like a rookie. The defensive coordinator, who used to be our head coach, is still a damn good coordinator on defense. Yeah. And he did a great job, and he made him really look silly.
Yeah, there were times where he could have tucked the ball and ran, and he didn't do it for a first time. I think he threw an interception on one of those times.
Yeah, he 3 interceptions, 2 balls knocked down. That's really how I would say it. The other note, too, I was a big fan of his in college, and he obviously had some trouble off the field, and that kind of derailed his career. The Honey Badger is a fantastic player, and he plays now for Houston. And boy, he had a wonderful game. He really showed up in spades. I thought he actually caused more problems than Watt and Clowney in this game. He was everywhere in the secondary, and I thought he really bothered Mayfield and the wide receivers throughout. So I think that's something else I wanted to point out. So all those things combined too. Again, Mayfield did have a great second half. You love to see the fight. But really, this game was played in the first quarter and the second quarter. So the first quarter, we kind of alluded to it. The other things, too, though, Jared, that we haven't touched on in a while because it hasn't been happening, but it did in this game. 3 and outs and 5 plays and out. On games like this is where you can get suffocated because Houston controlled the clock.
Well, and we talked about it last week. You talked about how they were going to run the ball, and all I came back with was, well, that's why we score fast, and that's what's going to work for us, and that just did not happen.
Did not happen. And if you're not scoring, you can't have 3 and outs, 5 and outs to start the game.
Not against this team either.
Exactly. I thought the big thing in this game that I will put aside all those, hey, it's a rookie. Hey, we're a young team. And by the way, those are fair statements, and that's very true. The one that I don't agree with is, 3 and out, 5 and out, and time of possession was basically 15 minutes difference. 37 minutes to 22 minutes and change.
Yeah, and that
big
first
difference.
drive, Andy, that first drive that the Texans had set the pace for the rest of the game. That first drive was like a 6.5-minute drive.
It did. And I actually thought they doubled down, even though they punted on the second drive. Even though they punted on that drive, I thought that really, to your point, I thought it set the tone. And the Browns just could never stay afloat in this game. The other big thing in this game, we're kind of alluding to it, and you teed it up, was the running game. Let's touch on our running game. This is the other thing, too, that I want to point out that I think is a negative. So the first negative, young team, yes, but you can't do 3 and outs, 5 and outs. You can't do that kind of stuff. And when you're playing certain teams, you have to be prepared to who you're facing. And they were not prepared to play a running team on the ground. They didn't look like they were prepared. Okay, fine. The other thing, too, is, you also have a running game, and Nick Chubb, and we all love Chubb. But, again, I pointed this out, and I think it's going to come back as the season goes on. I'm not saying that, we all high to some world beater. We don't think that. But it's nice having a backup good running back because it takes off the onus off one guy. It's so odd, Jared, that Nick Chubb got all the carries in this game. 9 carries for 31 yards. That is such an odd stat. I think it's a big concern going forward. They are going to have to find a running back in the offseason to complement Chubb.
Well, they weren't going to Duke early either, and that was an issue. And that was another thing that I thought that they needed to do to get yards, to keep drives going, where they had to have those little checkdowns. They had to have short passes to guys who can run the ball in space, David Njoku, even to Nick Chubb, and of course Duke Johnson, and they weren't doing that. Baker was going down the field and over the middle often, and I just didn't understand why they needed to do that. They didn't need to do it.
Yeah, again, they were just off. And I'm not going to hammer this home too much. A, is I don't have time. But B, Nick Chubb is a great running back. I think he's going to be, I think at some point an all-pro. But you have to complement with him something. And I agree with you about the Duke comment, but Duke's more of a passing, receiving running back at this point. Okay, you need to have someone to complement to take off the onus. And I just think in this game, it's not a good stat when you have 9 carries, 31 yards from one running back. It's just odd. It's something that needs to be cleaned up on the offseason. It's not going to be fixed in these last 4 games, but that is one thing I will be harping on throughout the offseason. The other thing, too, that really came away in this game, the first half, just focusing on the offense, and we'll get to the defense. So the offense really struggled. Mayfield was a big part of that. And, again, he's a rookie quarterback. And in fairness to Mayfield, he did a great job adjusting what was going on. And he played wonderful in the second half. Yes, the Texans took the foot off the gas, but it's also responsible for the player to take advantage of that. Mayfield did. I still thought, though, a big play in this game, Jared, was the Callaway fumble. I thought the game was still competitive at that point.
Yeah, it was over after that.
It really was. And again, Cowboy's a rookie, and you know he's going to have to work on those kind of things. But that was
Andy, that doesn't happen if the hold doesn't happen on the play prior.
That's true too. And I was going to mention
holy bleep, I was so mad. I haven't been that mad in weeks with this team. I had to walk away. I was so frustrated.
It was frustrating. It's just so frustrating because you knew the Browns had a door the way Mayfield was warming up to win this game.
Yeah.
You could see it.
Yeah.
And when Cowboy throws that ball, this team doesn't have the guns to do it. You know, some positives, there is one. Jarvis Landry played wonderful. He had one of his best games of the year compared to Tampa Bay. Yeah, great catches. Really had some tough catches. He played really well. David Njoku, I'm starting to become this guy with him. When he doesn't play well, it isn't just, I have a couple catches. He disappears. And he disappeared. And by the way, not only will he disappear, we'll have holding penalties and make silly mistakes. And that's what David did in this game. Yeah. Duke Johnson, for the first time in a while, did nothing. Really was taken out of this game. I don't remember Duke doing anything in this game. Maybe he had a play or
he had two catches for, I believe, 12 yards.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember him at all.
Yeah, that's what he did. I mean, the ball was spread around a lot again. I mean, I guess to Baker's credit, he's still, moving the ball around. But
no, he is. And in fairness, to someone like to Baker, you have to start going down the field when you're down that much. And again, he was so off in the first half that.
Well, even Higgins wasn't. Where was he? He got hit with a penalty. I think a tough penalty at one point too.
He did. I thought David stood out more.
Yeah.
David really played poorly. He just did not have one of his best games. And again, I'm starting to learn that about this guy. And that's why, too, I would think about bringing in a tight end or drafting a tight end. I don't think you have to cut this guy. I don't. But you need to get him challenged. He's not being challenged enough. And, he's a nice guy. Deceptive valve. Nice guy. I don't think he should be on the roster next year. He is getting to the point where that felt like old Browns when it looked like he fumbled the ball, and I thought they were very lucky they did not call that a turnover.
Yeah,
very lucky. That's the other thing that occurred to me during this game. The Seth evolves. There's still a couple people on this team. It's nice guy. I really do like his attitude. I don't think it's a good thing if he's a Brown next year.
Well, I mean, to talk about the positives, though, Andy, real quick, I mean, there were some there. Baker didn't quit, and the rest of the team didn't seem to quit on him. The Texans were just too much, and they were too far ahead. And, yeah, you said it from the top, Andy. They looked timid. They looked off. Yeah. And they looked maybe like they were drained from the week prior, and the emotions of that, and all the talk. And I'm not saying the talk was the issue. I'm not misdirecting and saying this is what happens because they were talking about you. And I'm not even saying they were focused on that. I'm just saying that stuff can be emotionally draining when you're trying to prep for a playoff team coming, the following Sunday.
I thought it carried. I was going to mention that next. I thought the PR war that was really raged last week, I think it took effect on everything. It doesn't mean that it cost them the games. I don't think it cost them the game. I don't. But I think it took a little bit of energy out of this team. I think the other thing that needs to be mentioned, so we've really focused on the offense. Yeah. And, again, kudos to Baker. He did play very well in the second half, and he had a great game, and his stats were great. But, again, when you come out, we said this the week before, so it needs to be said here. The Bengals and the Texans was a striking difference of how the Browns came out. And what a surprise. The results were about similar for the Browns on opposite ends. The Browns come out really focused and hot. They win easily. They come off. They don't look focused. They look timid. They lose by 16.
Yep. That's a part of finding their identity that they're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, and again, the only thing that we should be young. This is a team that's young with their star core, and Mayfield's a rookie. All right. The other issue too in this game, and then I'm going to get back to you in a second. It was Watson. I thought Watson just ate alive the Browns in the defense.
Elusive.
Man,
great pass rush that he avoided multiple times.
Yeah, I think Deshaun Watson. We're really lucky he's not in our division. But boy, he
would pose the danger to himself a few times, but man, did he was lucky.
Very lucky. But I'll tell you this, Jared. I'm starting to say lucky, but he's good.
Yeah.
He's making his own luck because he really does a nice job of knowing when to make the big throws. And the other two things that have to be talked about, we kind of alluded to. The running game for the Texans was just what a machine. Almost 200 yards. Miller had a great day on the ground. Mm-hmm. And as we alluded to, and this will be the last time we'll kind of hit on it, the tempo on the clock was so controlled by that running game. It really allowed Watson to really make throws with good timing. I was wrong about Hopkins. Hopkins is really good. I thought he was good last year. I've seen him play a lot. I've not watched the Texans a lot this year as much as other teams. He has really improved from the beginning of the year to now.
And you have to acknowledge how much TJ Carey struggled as well on Sunday.
Oh. Yeah, Carey had a rough game. Oh. He had one drive where it felt like he was getting a penalty after him. And we got to get to that, too. This is the first game that's non-Hugh Jackson. This is actually carried. Since the second half of the Bengals game, penalties have been a big issue. So this is 3 halves now. Second half of the Bengals game and these 2 halves. Boy, penalties were off. Boy, back to the old stuff.
Lots of holding, lots of PIs.
Bad timing penalties, just all over the place. From the holding penalty that cost really Callaway what he was trying to do to everything else. It was just bad across the board. It was one of those days, and I think we should allude to it. I felt this way. I've heard some people be on both sides, but I thought this was really bad for Greg Williams who wants to have a coaching gig. I do. I know the Houston Texans are really good, but these are the games you kind of shine and you kind of and you kind of lift the team. And I think Greg needed to do that with a young quarterback, and he did not lift the team. He had some strange timeouts as well in the first half to end the first half, and these didn't cost the game, but that timeout early in the second half too was odd. I just thought the coaching staff finally had some eyesores in this game. And by the way, I thought some of that was brought on too by Houston. O'Brien's been there for a long time, and Romeo Cornell, this is not his first rodeo. And it really showed in this game. But the Browns did not seem like they were just ready and focused. And yes, some goes on the players. I think some should go on the coaching too. I just didn't think they had this team ready, and you kind of said it, and I was going to hammer it home. The Browns won the PR war with Hugh Jackson. That needs to go away until next week.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think it will. I don't think it'll be brought back up. But even next week, we're still actually 2 weeks away. So we got 3 weeks here before the Bengals games. We go to Denver after we play Carolina at home. I would warn the Browns. I would really try to temper that Hugh Jackson stuff as much as possible.
I can't emphasize it enough that it needs to go away until it's that week. I don't care if you use it as motivation through that week. I don't care. That's fine. But that's great. You're rebuilding rivalries within the division, and I'm happy and I'm all for that. But I had said it. This team. If this was something, this is the bummer of it, Andy, this is something that I feel like if we would have started the season without Hugh, to continue talking about Hugh, we could have worked these kinks out, and this loss wouldn't have. Yeah. I think maybe that's what hurts the most is we kind of knew we were knocking at the door of of something that we know was not ever going to happen.
But something that needs to be reminded a lot is the bringing back of Hugh Jackson was a big error, not a small error.
It started the team in the hole in the first half of the season.
It just set such a bad vibe. I think this was the right year to do Hard Knocks, because I thought it really exposed what was going on. And again, it's I don't want to pile on a guy, but it was big. It was big. The 2 or 3 other notes here before we get some topics here for the Browns. I thought Myles Garrett actually, again, like Landry, I thought Myles Garrett actually played really well in this game. I thought this was one of his best games of the year.
Well, talking about Myles, I want to ask you real quick about that first sack that he had. It looked really rough, and I at first was surprised he didn't have a penalty called for that horse collar. Bruce Arians had said he's in the pocket. That play is allowed. Is that? I guess I didn't realize that was allowed. It's the one place. It's the loophole where the quarterback's not protected.
I'm going to say this. I think it's a 50-50 call because that's how these things go. I'm not so – I think these rules right now in the NFL are so flimsy that one day you'll hear that. One day you'll hear, oh, you're, personal foul, roughing on the quarterback, right? I mean, whatever, even though it's a sack because it's a horse collar, they'll call it a horse collar not play. I think it's flimsy. It's hard to really define these things anymore. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will give Garrett, though, because Watson was so elusive, I think he was just trying to grab anything he could to get him down. Mm-hmm. And I think at that point he was trying to grab shoulder pad, and then shoulder pad led to, the horse, the collar. As you could tell initially, he was trying to grab a shoulder pad and just slipped into the collar, and he did bring him down.
Yeah, and to the entire defensive front, I mean, they were collapsing that pocket regularly throughout the game. It was Watson just knew how to handle it. Mm.
Yeah, Denzel Ward leaving too is something I want to note. It's been brought up, and I think it's a good topic. I love Denzel Ward. For people who listen to this podcast, I'm a big fan of his. I do think it's fair, though, to start putting out there he needs to be more solid. He needs to add some weight because this is the second or third time this year now he's had a hit. And when I saw the hit initially, I thought the same thing. I was not surprised to hear 5 minutes later he went to concussion protocol.
Right.
Because when he took that hit, he just stood there, and it was like that did not look right. Denzel needs to make sure next year he's going to have to add some weight. I don't know what else to say.
Well, adding weight and I think that Greg Williams had mentioned it earlier in the season with this is Ward's second concussion this year, correct?
I think so.
That's not good. And I think the last one, Greg Williams had basically said that it was a stupid tackle. And I'm wondering if this is the same way. He's not going low. He's putting his body at risk. He put his head at risk, and that this was an avoidable thing. I need to go back and watch that play again.
When you watch it, it's striking because he just stood there like a statue for a couple seconds. It's very, very weird. So I think we kind of hit all the key points here. I just think overall the bigger thing here is we all know this is a young team with a rookie quarterback. Yeah. I know there's some older parts, but it's really the core players are young. So keep that in mind, and that really is the overall theme here. Again, the little things, I think there are some things, though, that need to be highlighted, that need to be focused on and corrected. I actually have hope that the Browns will correct those things. I think a big thing had to go with the Hugh Jackson topic last week. I did think that played a little bit into this game. I think it does. I think the only thing, we kind of hit on these other little dicks and dogs. I think the big overall thing, though, is, and I'll save some of these other topics, Jared, for the next podcast towards the end of the week. The Greg Williams thing, though, I thought this was a bad loss for him. I know some people have been like, I think it doesn't matter. I think he wasn't going to get I think if they would have won this game, I think Greg Williams would have had a real shot at it. I think after this week, though, I think it's tough. I think it's tough for him to win. Really? I think it's going to be tough for him to get this gig.
I think we're going to have to see how they bounce back from this loss, only because I feel like this is their first time as this unit facing the adversity that they are, where they really need to pick themselves up. So I'm going to go ahead and give it another go and see how the rest of this season plays out. Now, if they come out flat at home against Carolina in a game where they really do have a shot at taking this game at home against Carolina with the way that Carolina came off a loss last week, correct? They didn't look good.
They've lost 4 in a row.
Yeah, see,
they've lost 4 in a row.
And that's what I'm saying. If they can use that as a bounce back game this coming Sunday, I'm going to say Greg Williams is still alive in regard to that position.
Okay, I think that's fair. A couple other things too that I want to hit on. Now that I've watched this game and now acknowledging the Texans, I just want to say this. The one thing is, I think the Texans have a real shot of maybe going to the Super Bowl. I did not realize how talented the Texans were. I think I did not. In past years, the Texans always had talent, but they didn't feel like a team you feared. I'll tell you, I think they're going to be tough in the playoffs. I did not realize how much they have grown, and Deshaun Watson looks so good. That's my one thing.
I can't argue that. I can't argue that. I will say this again, though, Andy. As good as they looked, 4 turnovers, man. That's the game.
I know.
That's the game, and to still look like you're in it before that.
No, I agree.
Fumble.
I agree.
I mean, that's.
I agree.
God,
but the Browns were such a mess. They were such a mess, and some of that was because of Houston. But I agree with you. I always got the vibe though Houston was going to have a way to win that game. That's the one thing that bothered. But again, they should. The Houston's a year or two ahead right now,
yep.
And as they should be.
No.
As they should be with some of that team. But anyways, I think those are the big things. I was going to do a couple of things that we'll save for Friday's podcast because of time. Quickly around the league real quick, we were on the podcast, and then about an hour later, the Kareem Hunt thing broke. Mm-hmm. The thing that, that I found, this is a terrible situation. And everything, the Chiefs, the NFL, there's going to be a lot of questions. I think this story is not going to go away, Jared. I think the story is going to live. I hope.
Well, look how long it was in the shadows, Andy, for crying out loud.
I know.
What a failure on the part of the NFL and the Chiefs, in my opinion, because they had ears on this, but they never put eyes on it.
Yeah, I agree. I hope the young lady's okay. That for people who haven't watched it, it's the last 20, 30 seconds is bad, really, really bad and frightening. And Kareem really, what he did was awful, and he acknowledged it on the interview. But what he did was terrible. And what hurts is, there is a little bit of Cleveland in this because it happened in the Metropolitan 9. Yeah. And Kareem Hunt is a Cleveland kid. And you hate to see that. And the girl's from Cleveland, too. So there's a lot of Cleveland in the story, actually, even though it's a Chiefs story at the end of the day. Yeah. You just hope for that, these kind of things start going away, which I don't know if they will. I think the other thing is, too, Jared, I've been hearing people talk about it. I actually don't think Kareem Hunt's going to get picked up.
Well, that's the difference is there's video of this. When the video isn't provided or when the video isn't available or doesn't exist, and these guys weasel their way back into the league. We just saw it. We just saw it happen with the Redskins.
Yeah, I think it's going to be at least 2 or 3 years for Kareem Hunt, and I think by then it'll be too late. I don't know what else. Again, I hope the young lady's okay. I really felt for her when she got kicked in the last 10 seconds, and it was awful. It was really, really bad. It's going to be a lot. And again, I don't think the story is going to go away. I think the story will carry for a while. And it's another black eye for the league. That was actually having one of the more positive runs for a while because the flag story went away. Really, Kaepernick and that whole discussion's really been quiet this year. And Kareem Hunt in this story really put a damper on a season, as it should. What I found, the last thing on this story, and you kind of alluded to it, I thought it was odd how there was video of this and it didn't come out till now. I did find that to be odd. It took a long time for this video to come out.
I just don't understand it. There's something different about the way the NFL runs its culture comparatively to the other leagues, where there's a stubbornness there that I just don't get when it comes to being open and honest and real.
I'll say this. I think MLB has also had some issues with it. I think this Addison Russell, which I don't want that to take over today, but do you know about the Addison Russell from the Cubs?
No, I don't.
We'll save that for a different day. Addison Russell was also really accused of this multiple times, and it finally came out. I think he's serving a 40-game suspension that's coming out this year. He's serving a suspension.
Maybe I did hear some of this. Okay.
And my point is, like, Addison Russell, it almost took a year and a half for that to really come to effect where he was suspended. He was taken out last year in September, as he should. That took way too long for the Cubs and MLB to act on that, in my opinion. So I'll say this, the NFL, MLB, there's a couple instances in the NBA too. All these leagues have had I think at times one way or the other having a little slowness, especially in MLB and NFL. And the NFL has had a horrible time with it. Hopefully it gets better. I've seen some cases where it has been pretty quick. I also think what really hurt the NFL was the whole Foster situation with him getting picked up with the Redskins. The timing of that and the timing of this was not good.
Nope.
Not good at all. And both are related. So that's the Kareem Hunt. Back onto on the field stuff. It's awful and it's annoying. We all hate the Ravens, but they are on fire. Yep. They're really playing well. Yep. It needs to be acknowledged. And let's double down on Payne. Josh Gordon looked great. I will not go on a tirade. I don't have the energy this morning, but that does annoy me. I'm happy for Josh that he's healthy, but it is annoying as a fan that he's playing so well for a team I can't stand. The Giants game was wild, but I did want to touch on that, but time is short today. The bigger thing here is, and that does play into the Browns, is McCarthy being fired from the Packers.
Oh, boy.
And that we saw that coming. We talked about that on this podcast. By the way, it's the most horrific week for picks for me. I thought the Packers would win this week. I was in for picks. Terrible week. The gambling gods giveth and they taketh away.
Yeah, that was in the back of my mind. But
not a good week. I would have lost my house. Okay, back to McCarthy. I guess the Packers front office thinking the same thing I am. A, I thought you'd cover, and B, you can't lose that game in wet conditions. And by the way, out of all people, Zane Gonzalez with the game-winning field goal in this game, just to put a cherry on a Sunday.
Oh, yeah, he was back. I just noticed he was back. I got an update. He was back on Twitter for the first time in a long time.
Oh, yeah, come back. Welcome back. I can't believe that guy. I just you're happy for him, but at the same point, you're like, oh, Zane, how could you not kick indoors? He can kick on a wet field in Lambeau.
Yeah.
Lambeau, Cleveland, New York, Pittsburgh. Tough places to kick, right? Boy, he nailed it. 44 yards, nailed it right through the wickets. Anyways, back to McCarthy. That was a terrible, terrible loss. That was the end of the Packers' run with him. He is fired, and it's pretty obvious. The McCarthy stuff's going to be heating up.
Where do you stand on this? Because there's part of me that says this is a guy who consistently has gone to the playoffs and has won a Super Bowl, but at the same time, you've got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and you've only got one Super Bowl, and it ends like this.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel. I'm pretty sour on McCarthy.
I'm not. I think McCarthy should be looked at. I think the one thing that why you're feeling sour, which I understand why. I'll say this: I don't feel sour on McCarthy, but I understand why you do. And I think the big thing that's really haunted, and I'm a believer in this, losses carried, and that loss to Seattle in the NFC Championship game is carried. Really, the Packers have never gotten over that. They just have never been able to shake that off, and I think that's what eventually led to what we saw this year. I really think it had that much of an effect on them. They did win a Super Bowl. They did do some really good things in Green Bay. I will say this again. It never ends well for coaches usually. It never does. And this did not end well.
Well, I'm trying to keep that in my mind. That when these big names come available, it's because of something bad from where they're at. I do keep that in my mind. I'm gonna have to sit on this for a while, but okay. And Dorsey, I trust.
I'll just say this: my one comparison is Tom Coughlin, who I thought his career was really done after Jacksonville, went to New York and won 2 Super Bowls. It's possible.
And it ended poorly with him and Eli.
Right. And it did. By the way, it did end with him poorly with him and Eli.
Yeah.
I just think McCarthy is not you got to take a look at him. And you really got to examine him hard. Doesn't mean you should hire him, but you got to take a flyer on him.
Yep.
Let's end a positive for the NFL. Boy, wasn't that a wonderful Sunday Night Football loss that the Steelers had?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Fans fighting in the stands. The videos are coming out. It doesn't get any better than that. And yeah, I'll take that. I've been fueling my survival for the past 19 years on Steelers losses like that.
So tip the cap to Phil Rivers and the gang.
Well done, Chargers. Thank you.
Need a positive on a Sunday.
Oh man, and Steelers social media was just, they're a wreck. Get rid of Ben. He can't handle it. Oh, they are just they're losing their minds. That's the cherry on the whatever it is. Cherry on the cake is seeing how they just lose their minds over a loss like that. Oh.
They are very, and as I would be too, they are very sensitive right now. Because I added, I'm like, well, you should maybe look at Le'Veon Bell now. Don't say that. All right, hey, Connor's hurt. We don't need him. Okay. All right, we'll see. So, anyways, it is fun. You need a little, all the Steelers fans who watch us, we love you, but you need a jab. You need a little jab.
Yeah. I'll take it and deal with it.
Speaking of jabs, let's get to college football.
Yep.
Ohio State football.
Your poor Buckeyes they get to play in Pasadena. I shouldn't say poor Buckeyes. They get to play in the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, which I will get to a theory on that in our bowl podcast. But, Northwestern Ohio State, I think we should start there. Everybody knows the playoff now for people who have been living under a rock. It's Alabama, it's Clemson, it's Notre Dame, and it's Oklahoma. Okay, those are your teams. How do we get there? I think we should start from the end of the day to kind of work ourselves throughout. Ohio State, Northwestern, the one thing we mentioned on this podcast, I think the one thing that is unfair, Jared, that needs to be mentioned is Northwestern's not a bad team.
No, they're not.
They're not a bad team, and that needs to be reiterated. Because what I kind of thought was going to happen, the Ohio State won by 21, but it was tight. In the middle of the third quarter, it was getting nerve-wracking, especially when Weber fumbled the ball. It got shaky in the third quarter at one point.
Andy, it was a game that showed me exactly what I've been saying all season, and that is that this team is not. They don't deserve to be. I'm sorry, they don't deserve to be in that top four.
Well, here's what's weird about Ohio State. That game is a great, except for Haskins, who has excelled. Really, Haskins has grown. His last three games, Maryland, Michigan, Northwestern. I guess he's playing so well they're taking him to New York for the Heisman Trophy. I think that's extreme. I don't think he's a Heisman candidate, but okay. His last three games have been that good. You're going to take him to New York. But I'll say this: that was a complete example of what the season was like, where there are times where Ohio State looks great, and then there's times they're giving up big runs for touchdowns. There's times it looks like Ohio State has control, and then they turn over the ball, and it looks like they can't even have maybe even the game's in doubt.
Yeah.
Go for it. What are you going to say?
Well, I'm just, the run game was decent, but it wasn't great.
That's right.
Haskins just blew the doors off with basically a 500-yard, 5-touchdown performance. He has the one interception. But looking at Northwestern, balanced on both, balanced on their run game, their pass game. They held in there tough with the Buckeyes throughout most of that game. They never allowed. Even when. 45-24 isn't, when we're talking college football, those 24 points weren't garbage time points. That was a competitive game almost till the end. So
it was, but in fairness, Northwestern's good.
Yes.
That's not a bad win. Like, that's the thing I think that does get taken away. But okay.
They're still a 4-loss team, and Andy, and that, whatever you want to call it, as good as they are, Ohio State needed to come in, shut them out, win big like they did against Wisconsin, and they didn't do it, and that's why they are where they are.
I know.
On top of Oklahoma doing what they needed to do. So,
by the way, I agree with you. And again, I'm just going to go by sexiness. Yeah. Texas is a lot sexier to beat than Northwestern.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. It just is what it is.
Yep.
Again, the Buckeyes. If you held a gun to my head and you go Buckeyes, Bulldogs, Sooners, who would win in this? They're all to play each other. I would actually be like, I think at the end, I think the Buckeyes somehow get 2 wins. I don't think it'll be pretty. I'm not saying it's going to be easy.
I agree.
At times you're going to lose your mind, but I think they get 2 wins.
I also think that they've got the best chance at beating, this Alabama team.
I don't disagree. I think Clemson and Ohio State are in play. Clemson's the other one.
Clemson's in play, and I was thinking about that. But at the end of the day, if you can talk all that, you know what? We can agree that Ohio State might be that team. But guess what? They got blown out by Purdue. So sit down.
Sit down, and again, 1-2 point bad pass conversion away.
You got to handle business if you want to be in there.
I agree. I did.
Don't leave it in the committee's hands. Period.
All agreed, and that's where I want to now go back to the other side of it. All that to be said, you made your bed. I mean, I agree with you, and that's why I actually thought at the end of the day the right pick was Oklahoma. Oklahoma did what they had to do. Their defense actually showed up. This is like opposite weekend for things I thought. Oklahoma's defense did play well. I thought Texas really controlled the first half, but they allowed Oklahoma to get momentum going in that halftime. I thought that was a big part of this game. I think Texas is overrated too. That whole week. I'll tell you right now, if anybody wants to take Texas over Georgia, come on down to Vegas Billman here, and I'll be happy to take your card because there's no way Texas beat Georgia. There's no way. Anyways, I don't want to get off to that tirade. Oklahoma deserves it. Murray's going to New York as well for the Heisman Trophy ceremony, and he's a very good player. He's been I think Tua deserves the award, but if there was a second place, I think Kyle Murray deserves it. Kyle has been great all year. So Oklahoma did enough. And I agree. And again, if I were in the selection committee, I would take Oklahoma over Ohio State, even though I know head-to-head I think Ohio State wins. I think Oklahoma is the better choice because of resume and everything else. They win. They did their thing. The game of the day was in Atlanta. I love the Alabama-Georgia game. What a wonderful game.
Yeah, that was fun.
And what happened with Hurts coming in the game late was just a great story. And he comes in, wins the game. Again, because of time, I can't get too much into the violin of this game. But I'll tell you this much. Georgia choking that league's a problem. They cannot have this. I'll tell you, again, losses carry. Georgia can't keep losing games like this to Alabama.
Well, they're clearly in their head, the way that it went down again.
I mean, it was a visual of last year. And I'll tell you the truth, too. I thought the quarterback for Georgia took a hit when it comes to the pros. He did not look good in the fourth quarter.
No.
Didn't look good.
Nope.
I thought Georgia really – it just was stunning. I mean, yeah, some of that was Alabama, but some of that was on Georgia, too. I thought because of that, I'll do my rant now. It's insane for people who defend Georgia getting in there. Look, Georgia had 2 losses. They had their opportunity. They lost at LSU by 20. And, yes, LSU is very good and is on the road. But come on. You lost your 2 games. Their best win is either Florida or Kentucky. Their wins are not overblowing wins. And that was the other thing, too, Jared, that really hurt Ohio State. TCU and Oregon State being their non-conference was not great. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
That really hurt them here. I thought that the same thing with Georgia. Georgia's, aside from Georgia Tech, who they play every year, it was Austin Peay, UMass. I'm forgetting another no-name team in there. Those kind of teams, when you play that and you add Georgia Tech, your schedule, your schedule soft. So people want to argue Georgia. I would come back with their best win is either Florida on a neutral field or at Kentucky. Those aren't great wins. Sorry.
Well, and again, you want in. You got it. You had your chance.
I agreed. So I don't want to hear about the Georgia stuff. I thought that was.
Are they better? Are they more deserving than Are they a better team than Oklahoma or Notre Dame or Clemson? I don't know, but
I think Georgia's different. I think Georgia's really more in the mud than what people think. I think, again, for people who forget, Notre Dame and Georgia played, and yes, they're different teams. Notre Dame lost by 1 point. 1 point. I mean, they were in that game. I thought they should have won that game. They just didn't have enough at the end to really put a drive together. I just think Georgia at times is this way too much of a machine here. And the other thing that drives me crazy, which I'll do on a bowl podcast, they played that SEC championship game in Atlanta. There were definitely Crimson Tide fans there, no question. There were a lot of Georgia fans in that dome.
Yep.
A lot. So, again, Georgia had a good season, but they get all mushy about, they have to be in the playoffs. And I love Kirk Herbstreit. I think he's so wrong in this argument.
Well, he's stubborn, and we know that, right? When he comes to these takes.
Yeah, but I mean, I like that, but still, come on. Anyways, the other thing too, real quickly, Clemson did what they had to do. Boy, I'll tell you what, Pittsburgh can't make it. I know probably no one watched it. Pittsburgh could not make a pass to save their life in that game. That was really what came down. And so people go, what happened in the Clemson-Pittsburgh game? Pittsburgh actually ran the ball decently. They couldn't make a pass. Couldn't make a pass. Really, I mean, could not complete a pass. That was the difference in that game. So Clemson, as the game went on, just blew them out. I will say this about Clemson. And I'm going to say my Notre Dame thing. So 2 parts here, right? Clemson. I actually like Clemson, and I'm actually a Dabo Swinney fan. I like his energy. I'll be honest with you, Jared. I would love for the Browns to take a look at him.
Yeah.
I think I know he's a college coach, and he feels like a college coach. I would take a sniff if he ever wanted to go to the NFL. So I think he's got NFL attitude. I think he could really do it. Clemson has not beaten anybody this year. Outside Texas A&M on the road, is that their most impressive win? Syracuse at home? I mean, Clemson really hasn't beaten anybody either. So for people getting on these resumes, I mean, what has Clemson done? And then the second half, yes, I know I love Notre Dame. Love them. Love Notre Dame football. For people who are getting on the Irish, and yes, the Irish ate duck crepes during the college football playoff matchup. And yes, it's Notre Dame, so the northerner, the sophisticated, obviously white collar, and all that's true. But I'll tell you this. I want to say it for the podcast, Jared, when we do for the bowl special. People better start waking up. Notre Dame's got just as much a right being there, and they could beat Clemson on the right day.
Oh, they can beat Clemson on at least half the days, in my opinion.
Yes.
I say this because, look, Clemson had a season where they did what they needed to do. One, they went undefeated. 2, they beat teams that they were supposed to beat, and they beat them big.
Yeah.
3, they hung in there against their ranked opponents that they beat. Although I will say that a win against Texas A&M that they struggled through doesn't necessarily give them the strong resume that you're looking for. How close is that game against Syracuse?
Oh, it was down to 3 points.
I mean,
right. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a season where you have to have them in because they did what they were supposed to do throughout the season. They didn't blow any of their ranked opponents away, though. That's where where you see that that they're going to have their weaknesses in this playoff, and that Notre Dame's got a real shot in that game.
I agree. We'll save it for the podcast, but I agree because I want to do we're going to do a big bowl special podcast. Real quickly, I want to get the temperature in the room excitement. I'll get mine first. I love Purdue Auburn, so I'm a Purdue fan. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how they match up with Auburn. I think it's a great matchup. Are you into Miami, Wisconsin, a rematch from last year?
Boy, I don't care about that game.
All right, that's fine. I don't care about that game either.
I don't know how I could.
I know. Well, I'll get to my bigger point here.
Yep.
Peach Bowl, Florida, Michigan. Into that game?
No.
I'm into it, but I get it.
I mean, I'll watch it, but I'm not. Yes, I got you.
Okay. Yeah. Central Florida, LSU, a Fiesta Bowl. Have some pumpkin pie or whatever. What is the big dessert in New Year's now? I don't even know anymore. But have some ice cream and dig into UCF and LSU late at night, Fiesta Bowl.
I actually care about this game.
That's interesting.
For a couple of reasons. I think I would find it highly amusing if UCF won that game.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get a kick out of it. And if they don't win that game, UCF, that entire organization needs to be quiet from there on out. And that's where I stand with that. And I think I will watch that game for that storyline reason.
New Orleans. That game's not in New Orleans. It's not in the South. They put that in a nice neutral location, so I agree. I'm also interested in that game a little bit. I'm interested to see. But UCF, by the way, people forget, Central Florida did beat Auburn last year. And Georgia in the Peach Bowl, so it'll be interesting. Kentucky, Penn State, does that get the Watson household fired up? Citrus Bowl?
No.
I agree. But I get into it because of Penn State, but Kentucky, I don't know. Texas, Georgia, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm actually because I want to see if I'm right. Like, I think Georgia's going to blow them out in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, and I agree. And that's going to, Georgia's, there's no denying that team's going to come in pissed off. And Texas is probably just, they're not, how are they going to, they're exhausted, I'm guessing, at this point. So
they have to be. A couple other things to touch on, then we'll get right to the Indians. Central Florida had a great, exciting win over Memphis. By the way, just one last note: Fresno State won in Boise in the Mountain West Championship game.
A lot of people didn't take that game. They didn't. That was picked wrong by many.
I'll tell you that. Again, let's not analyze it, but kudos to Fresno State. What a great win to win in Boise on the blue turf, and hats off to Jeff Tedford and those guys. That's a great win. Anyways, wanted to mention that. And like I said, we'll do a special bowl podcast show and go down through all the games and rank them from watchable to we'll pick every game and people can make fun of us for our right and wrong picks and all that kind of good stuff. And then we get to the Indians.
Cleveland Indians.
We kept saying no news on the Indians. Well, that got thrown out on Friday night as Jan Gomes, which I was not expecting, got traded to the Nationals for Jeffrey and Daniel Johnson. I'll break this down quickly. I don't like this trade at all. It bothers me from this standpoint. Jan Gomes is a great catcher who's went to the All-Star game this year, whose hitting has been on the incline. It's been improving.
Yep.
He's been catching a stat over 4 seasons now.
Yep. And
you trade him when he's under a good manageable contract.
Yep.
Okay. What does this trade tell me? I don't want to get into the Daniel Johnson. Again, prospects drive me insane.
Yep.
Like I don't know Daniel Johnson. I don't know this right-hander we got. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear it today. What it tells me, though, Jared, is that they actually have some budget numbers they're really crunching. Because if you're trading for Jan Gomes away for, again, minor league prospects, oh, my gosh, you're definitely trying to crunch your numbers.
Well, and they've also flat out said they're not going to be going after any big names in this offseason.
No.
I mean, it's...
No.
I don't know where that. I know that you're right. It probably does come down to a money thing. I just don't. I don't know. I don't.
I'll say this.
I still don't. It's awful. It's a bad look. PR wise, it was a bad look for fans.
It's hard getting fired up
on it.
I am too. It's hard getting fired. And again, I don't want to hear about Daniel Johnson's an outfielder. Oh, if you think he's coming in to make plays, come on, relax. He's not playing next year. Here's the thing, though. It tells me, though, Jared, I think needs to be brought up. Maybe there's more concern about how Bradley Zimmer's going to play in 2020, 2021 than we know about. That's the other thing, too. Because Daniel Johnson is a high-end prospect who can't play the outfield. It makes you wonder if they wonder how Bradley's going to do next year.
That could be part of it. But the outfield's going to need more than Bradley Zimmer, though, too.
I know. I think the Indians outfield. It's going to be a constant discussion on this podcast. I hate saying it. I hope I'm wrong. I think it's going to be a daily discussion.
And I said, I think that it comes down to they want to see where this team is halfway through the season and do the mid-season retooling that I'm not even really that much of a fan of. We saw it didn't work this year, so.
We'll see. They are definitely under a budget crunch as the ending result of this trade. Again, Jan Gomes being traded, though, for a manageable contract, man. Losing a catch like that, it's a big loss, in my opinion. A big loss.
Can I go on a personal rant here on a separate subject, on a separate guy that is still driving me nuts, and the more it goes on, the more I'm aggravated.
Sure.
I'm going to need Bauer to get the hell off of Twitter
Uh-oh. I wasn't expecting this answer. Okay.
I am so tired of him. And here's my reason.
Okay.
First of all, it's great. Him and Sunshine love each other. They're best friends. Good. That's great. I love it. Him and Clevenger.
Yeah.
He says some stuff on Twitter that is just downright just like, what are you doing? What are you saying? Do you realize you're a public figure? Do you realize kids look up to you? He just sounds, I don't know. He's just not. I know that I'm nitpicking, and I know I've said things that Bauer is saying on Twitter. I get it. Maybe I'm being a little too tough on him, but I feel like this has been going on long enough.
Are you speaking about now? I'm looking at his Twitter. I'm looking at his Twitter page.
On your face, yes.
Yeah, I'm looking on the Twitter page here. Are you talking about the
go ahead, because there's two things, but go ahead.
The bird with the drone when he sticks his middle finger up. Is that one of the things that bothers you?
Well, so now let me explain that story. It looks like he had made a comment prior saying that he had got his finger caught in the blade again, right? And then he gets mad when people make the jokes about it. I'm going to need Bauer to grow the hell up. Grow up or shut up. The guy just, to me, that tells me, it just shows who he is. And I just am not a fan of how he acts via social media. Look, I know that I might be on an island with this, and I'm fine with that, but I'm done with him. I just am. You want to make room for salary. You want to get rid of somebody. You want to make a trade. There's your guy for me. I'm done.
I'll say this: as I'm now reading his Twitter, I guess I've been blinded by too many other things. I'm now reading his Twitter page. The one other thing I do find interesting about Bauer, I guess he said, if I were to be traded, the only thing I wouldn't miss about Cleveland is Paul Hoynes' articles. The rest. Oh,
and I forgot about that one. That's the one that had me back on his Twitter as of about a week ago, and that's why I even started looking again, was because of that one. Yeah. Yeah,
I here's the thing that Trevor's got to be really conscious of. I don't read Hoynes as much as I used to, but I do read him. Hoynes is doing his job. Hoynes is not a bad guy. I wouldn't be so ready to pounce on that, because baseball. And here's the other thing that I will say bothers me about what he's saying. Baseball is built around trade rumors more than any other sport, so that's going to happen anyways. And by the way, the Indians are making trades. So why can't there be trade banter and articles and stuff? And by the way, to your point, I have seen for the first time a lot more publications picking up the Kluber trade talk.
Yeah. I
think we need to really start watching.
And that's another reason why I'm bringing up Bauer. Pick him, please.
Well, I'll just say this. I think this Kluber thing has got a lot more I get the feeling, Jared, if he gets traded, there's a lot more to Kluber than what we know about. I don't think Kluber will be traded. I just don't. And I will also acknowledge Salazar got re-signed through arbitration. They didn't have to go to arbitration. They agreed to a 1-year, $4 million deal. So Salazar again signed and that's another thing too. Salazar needs to play. He's not cheap anymore. That's a big contract ratio.
Yeah, coming off the Jan Gomes, it makes even less sense now. I just don't understand.
I agree. So Salazar, he's going to have to play well. And that's going to be a huge year for that guy. And the other thing too, I'm noticing that I saw that I thought was a good thing is they're trying to renegotiate Carrasco to get him to stay longer in Cleveland. What that tells me, Jared, is I wonder I think they're coming to a point where it's like Kluber, Bauer. I guess what I'm trying to say here is too with Gomes. I guess here's the one thing that we should all consider: were they traded on Gomes to make a bigger trade to take on more contract money?
And I've thought about that, but it doesn't correlate with. It doesn't go with the talk of not signing a big name in the offseason. I don't know
Well, they said they would trade for someone. That's not signing. They'd be trading.
Yeah, but at the same time, why do you have to have? Why is Kluber? I just don't see. I don't know why Kluber's the.
I don't think Kluber's going to be traded. I don't. I don't think you can trade him.
I hope not. And you can, if the Indians fans listen, y'all don't. I'm so tired of it. You hear them complaining about his performance in the postseason. I don't want to hear it. You've got other World Series contenders and winners that would love nothing more than to add that man to their roster.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll say this. Here's where again, for people who say that, watch the 2016 postseason and remind yourself who led your team through the playoffs.
Yep.
Cody, yes, Andrew Miller was great. Cody Allen made some saves, but boy, you don't go anywhere without Corey Kluber.
Yep, and who let your team down in a year where the World Series could have been yours? Yeah.
The entertainment value was up. The pitching was no bueno.
Yeah.
That's a very fair point. We should do more on the Indians, but I agree with you. The Indians have finally heated up. I think there's more to come.
Yeah, they've had to do this stuff to kind of get my interest peaked again recently now.
Well,
but they've done it in a way where I'm getting pissed off until I see how it comes out. Right. But we've talked about it. It's a division that there's to take, and they can get away with making some of these moves right now. I just don't know if the means are going to meet the ends or however you say that, but.
I know what you meant.
Where am I at? I'm telling you right now, it's 7:30 in the morning.
I'll say this: we are definitely a nighttime podcast. I'm going to put this in our memory bank. We are definitely night owls. We are not morning birds. So next time when you say, "Hey, which one should we do?" I'm like, night.
Yeah.
I don't care. I couldn't do it,
Andy. I got on that train last night on my way home, and I was just as fried coming home last night as I was.
No, buddy, you had a long day. And I got a long day ahead of me too. I'm going to be in Dallas in less than 12 hours. But a couple quick things here as we wrap up the show. I was going to do a wrap up.
Cleveland Cavaliers.
On the Cavs, they had a nice win last night. They won. After losing 4 in a row, they beat the Nets. I thought that was I actually watched the majority of that game. A couple things. The one thing to take away from this, trades are still to come. Boy, I'm getting verklempt they won. I'm so excited they won, Jared. But the big thing here to take away, Sexton is definitely a rookie. Don't be surprised if his numbers fluctuate. They're starting to go down again. There's gonna be a Dow Jones situation where it's gonna be up and down, up and down. Don't go too fixated on that. The George Hill trade, I think, is going to be coming in. I think it's going to be coming here quickly. And then Kevin Love is the next big topic conversation. I think that's going to be tricky. We'll get more into that because I know we're short on time. The Buckeyes won a game on Sunday. That was good. Michigan State blew out Iowa. I'll mention that. And then the one curiosity thing that'll lead us non-Cleveland, then we'll wrap up on the Browns. Hoiberg for the Bulls got fired. I always thought that was a weird peg situation. They obviously took some notes and they tried to do what was going on in Boston with the Celtics by taking Edwards from Butler and bringing him into Boston. The same situation did not happen. Hoiberg is a very good coach and should get a college gig very soon. Very good coach. I like Hoiberg a lot. Would not be surprised if he fits back in Iowa State, by the way.
And I'm going to say after the season that the Ohio State Buckeyes had, where coming off of all the garbage from early in the year with Urban Meyer and his health issues as well, and the Zach Smith nastiness, and losing really terribly to Purdue throughout the season, stop your bitching and complaining and be happy that you got the Rose Bowl, period. I'm done with listening to my fellow Buckeyes throwing their temper tantrums. You didn't deserve it this year. Get over it. I'm looking forward to next season because that team is going to be solid. Let's win this Rose Bowl and then roll through next year. Other than that, quit your pissing and moaning. End of story.
Wow. I like this. Fired up, Jared. I like that. That was nice. That was nice. I'll end up on this then, too. I'll end on my college note. For people complaining about the Irish getting in, the Irish do not have sexiness from the outside when you're looking and if you don't watch them. Dexter Williams and Ian Book can play, and they are vast improved. This is not 2012 Irish. I hope they prove me right in the Clemson game. I think that Clemson game is big for Notre Dame. I think people need, and we'll get more of that in our bowl preview show, but I think people need to get off that too. A lot of people, it's been to the point, Jared, I'm like, oh, Notre Dame's lucky to have pants and shoes on Saturdays. I mean, geez Louise. I mean, Notre Dame is still pretty good, folks. Still pretty good. The wrap up on the Browns, it was a faceplant loss against a very good team. I will say the Browns have played a tough stretch. It doesn't get any easier, really. Even though the Panthers have lost 4 in a row, they're still 6-6, and they go to Denver, which has gotten hot all of a sudden, and then the Bengals, which they've kind of fallen off. So you got the Bengals game as your one letdown. But it's going to be fascinating to hear what's going on now that McCarthy's out in Green Bay. I think for the first time, Jared, this week, that the coaching windmill will get fired up. I would be surprised if it didn't this week.
Well, we'll be listening. We'll keep our ears to the ground and come back with more in a couple of days as we preview the Browns taking on the Carolina Panthers. And we'll be talking bowl stuff as well. And
Yeah, we'll do a bowl special preview, and maybe we'll do a bitter Buckeye section.
Yeah, the lines are open. Call now and give us your gripes so I can ignore them.
I'll go into that later, but we'll do a bowl preview podcast. We'll be back later this week with more things. But again, I would keep your ear. I guess my thanks for good Clevelanders out there. Let's see how the Browns do this week with the PR. My prediction is it's going to be such a quiet week. I think the Browns will heed to that. And I think the other thing in Cleveland right now, outside the Cavs playing games and watching see George Hill gets traded, I think the Indians trade rumor is also going to get very fired up this week. That'd be the other thing to watch.
Ohio State football.
Andy and Jared, Cleveland and beyond, coming back on Facebook Live real quick because, of course, as soon as we finish doing the morning podcast, we get breaking news. Urban Meyer will be stepping down as Ohio State head coach following this Rose Bowl. This is something that I had sniffed out earlier this year. I've talked about it a million times this year, throughout the podcast, throughout the season, that I thought it was a real possibility, that I thought it was a real thing that could happen. And here it is, Yahoo Sports reporting. Andy, what are you seeing?
The big things here are, it sounds like, this is the first report comes out, so you got to see how it gathers steam here in the next, in the next hour or so. But I think the big things here that I took out is this line: a myriad of factors contributed to Meyer's decision, but sources say foremost among them was his happiness with the state of the Ohio State program he inherited 7 years ago. The other big thing here is Ryan Day. It sounds like he's going to be the interim. Sounds like he's going to be the replacement, which that's kind of been rumored already. So 3 quick things. One, Jared's right. He had been seeing this all year, but it also plays out something I have been observing. When I read that statement, it doesn't sound like Meyer's done coaching. Don't be surprised if Meyer is coaching somewhere else in the next year or so. That's number one. Number two, when I was in Columbus last, I was surprised during the Thanksgiving break. I was surprised how many Buckeye fans had been worn out by Urban Meyer. I was really, really surprised.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, I know, and you are, and you're right. And let you tee it up. So I think the big thing that I noticed was they were really getting tired of the Meyer. Obviously, what happened over the summer played a big part of it too, and it should. But people were really getting tired of his act and tired of the Meyer Ohio State way. It was just wearing thin. I was surprised about how many Ohio State fans were not excited as in past years going into the Michigan game. I just did not feel that same excitement, even though the Michigan game was exciting and it played well. I didn't feel that same vibe or fervor. I think number 3, you could definitely tell there's a lot of deterioration between what was going on in the athletic office, probably in the presidential office at Ohio State, and Urban Meyer. And when you have a situation that happened, that's not unusual. I guess they just could not survive it, which I'm not surprised. They probably again, I was the one who should have felt he should have been fired after everything had happened. He was not. He stayed through it. I think the season wore on him, not as his health. I think the season wore on him as he just needs a new. I think in his mind he needs a new situation. So Urban Meyer's out. I'll let you take it away there, Jared, with your thoughts.
Yeah, about 4 days ago, and this is continuing, the theme of what I believe is misinformation that comes out of Urban's mouth, and I'm not sure exactly what the deal is, but I feel like he has just had a track record of not being honest, and maybe it's not being honest with himself when it comes down to it. But him and Ohio State athletic director Gene Smith, he denied being on the rocks with that relationship. Gene Smith 4 days ago came out and there's a report on Bleacher Report saying that there is no truth to Urban resigning or stepping down. This was 4 days ago. And I believe that during the Big Ten championship game, I could be wrong. I am not quoting anything on this portion. I believe that Urban had stated that he had that he was not stepping down. So again, I couldn't see how he wouldn't step down. I knew that they were grooming Day to take over that position. All of this just seemed like inevitable. An inevitable situation to me, and it has shown to be so. What I can't get over is the misinformation, and some would even call it lying. And the only reason that I'll say that there's lying is because when I go back to the original reason that all of this is coming up, which comes down to Zach Smith, is it all began with a lie, and it seems like it's all ending on a lie as well. I am frustrated. I am so frustrated, Andy, because we all wanted to sit here and act like everything was fine and everything was normal. And the entire time I've been saying, this is not okay. This guy has to go. It's not, he's going to step down. And here it is. It happens. And Ohio State fans, you gotta, this is something that you should have reckoned with at the beginning of the season. You wanted to stick behind Urban, and I just didn't think it was the right thing to do. And here's Urban leaving now.
Yeah, we're going to have to get into this more. I got to go to Dallas.
All right, go to Dallas, Andy.
This is I wish I had time.
Hey, shout out to my buddy Antoine Prater over on the West Coast right now, who's the one who alerted me to this as soon as it happened. So thanks, Antoine, for that.
Yeah, and Yahoo Sports was the first one that came out. It came out at 7:32 a.m., and ESPN's now coming out with the same story as we were going live now. So Urban Meyer stepped down. Sounds like Zach Day is going to be the new coach. That's early reports. We'll have to see if that happens. We're going to have to get into this more. We'll do a special college broadcast, and we'll talk about this at length about Meyer, because I think Jared hit on some things. And two quick things, I'll let Jared wrap up. I've heard similar stories from reporters at times about how frustrated they had been in the past with Urban Meyer back in Florida. A lot of people think that he gives a lot of misinformation, I'll call it, to what Jared said. You hate to call someone a liar. That's a strong term. But he definitely gives some information that's not truthful. And he does that quite a bit, and that really frustrated reporters a lot. He was also very hard to work with when it came to the press. So I think that also carried in Columbus. I did not get the vibe from local press. They were really in love with Urban Meyer at times. Some people were, some people weren't. I didn't feel as strong as I did in the South. But I think the big thing here is, again, Jared, I'll hit on, we'll have to see how this plays out, and we'll see what changes between now and the end of the week. But from what I'm reading early on, I bet you Urban Meyer will have a job, maybe not next year, but I think either next year or the year after. It sounds like this guy's not done coaching from what I'm reading here. Well, it sounds like he just wants a new situation to get in.
He's done coaching at Ohio State, and I also have a feeling that the Buckeyes are going to come out strong and want to win one last game for him. I do think that's how that's going to play out. Time will tell. I'm going to wait and see how this story unfolds, and then I'll probably have a better idea of what I think about this upcoming Rose Bowl. But what a time for that news to break. Hey, Andy, go get to Dallas, brother. And thanks for jumping back on, and I'm glad that we were able to at least break this news here. Urban Meyer, once again, Urban Meyer stepping down as Ohio State head coach following this Rose Bowl, as first reported that we saw through Yahoo Sports, and is now being carried by all the major networks as the story unfolds. Andy, take care, brother.
See ya.
Andy and Jared, Cleveland and beyond. Have a good day. Hey, don't forget to follow Andy and Jared, Cleveland and Beyond, on Facebook at facebook.com/Cleveland and Beyond, and on Twitter at CLE and Beyond. That's at CLE and Beyond on Twitter. You can also shoot us an email, andyandjared@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing your comments.